Okay, so in these next suggestions, I talk about the things that you should focus on detail, where you should pay more attention, because as you can see, the first two are briefly, because I already said it's like seminar one again, but now this is new. In this part, you need to present the process of the empirical work. You need to be very descriptive and be very transparent. That's why I write in here, like, be extremely transparent and detail about everything that you did, like report everything that you did on the empirical work in the data collection and the data analysis. So here are some suggestions of things that you can include, that you should describe and be very transparent when you present. If you can answer to these questions with what you present, I think you are in the right track. There are more questions that you can unpack, but these are some ideas. So first, make sure that you explain how did you define your sample if you're doing quantitative, or your case, or your respondents if you're doing qualitative. How did you define them? Why do they fit on the to answer to the research question? That's very important, right? That's one of the things, one of the first things that you need to do. Then how did you contact the respondents, either if it is through surveys or questionnaires or interviews or focus groups or whatever. So make sure that you explain how did you contact them. Then the next question, how did you typo here, how did you conduct the surveys or interviews? Explain in detail how they happen, like were there via Zoom or maybe face-to-face? Did you record them with your phone, or video recorded also with your phone? Like, explain all of these things. How did you do it? If it is about surveys also, were they online surveys or paper surveys or phone surveys? I don't. And then also explain if there were any issues or challenges. Like, the more information you give, the better. Maybe you can link this to ethics. I will explain a little bit about ethics, but in general, the suggestion is like, explain everything and describe everything, put everything in the presentation, right? And then I think even it says in detail, here you need to pay more attention. Like, here you can go a bit quick because it's brief, but here is in detail. So make sure that you really talk about it. Then the next thing is, once that you told us how did you define your sample, how did you contacted the people that you interview, all of these things, then you need to present the empirical findings. So again, it's also on detail. So take your time to present your findings. I think this is maybe the core of the presentation. You can start maybe with descriptive statistics, for example, if you're doing quantitative, or maybe general findings or a description of the case or the respondent if you're doing qualitative. Like, of course, if you're doing quantitative, you can start with mean, the size of the sample, the ranges, all of these things, right? Like, even talking a little bit about the questionnaire, the variables, like this, the kind of descriptive things. But if you are doing qualitative, maybe describe the person who you interview, like what is the background of that person, maybe something like that, like the descriptive part of your findings. So you can start with that. But you should also, and this is very important, that you highlight the kind of the surprising findings or the key findings. Like if you could summarize your findings in 3 sentences, what will these findings be? So my suggestions are that these findings have to be linked to the research purpose and question. Like, for example, if you stated that if your purpose and question is to understand the process of how managers deal with the remote working situation, then maybe it's not a relevant finding if you talk about, for example, like the things related to compensations, financial compensations to managers on performance. Like, maybe that is not really related to remote work. So make sure that the findings are related to the purpose that you are intending to address and the research question that you want to answer. And usually between two, three, or four relevant findings are a good number of findings. I know that it can be a challenge only with 1 or 2 interviews and only with not much data from your surveys to come up with the key findings, but do like a leap of faith. Think about what's interesting and put it in there and be ready to justify that. Why is it important? And uh, and also the findings should be coherent with the research approach. And this is very, very important, because here is where sometimes in qualitative we make mistakes. Like sometimes we in qualitative we see that we claim that we want to unpack a process, that we want to understand how something happens, and then when we present the findings we say like, these are the factors that are relevant, or this is what happens. Very, very descriptive, like saying like, this is you can say like in the remote working thing, it's important to have or to care about finance and motivation, for example. And then that's you only claim that you found that these two things are important. But remember, what is the research question? The research question is how. It's about the decision-making process. So it's not only enough if you say like this and this, because that is not explaining how a process happens. You need to dig deeper, like, okay, maybe it is important, the compensation, the financial compensation, but how does it work? Why does it work? What are the complications? Like, is it financial rewards that happen really quick, or I mean, like the timing of the financial compensation, if is that the important thing, like, or is it the amount, or is it a mix on both, or is it to make sure that it is connected, the remote work with the compensation? Like, try to unpack more the findings, like not just say like, oh, this is financials are important and that's our finding. If you are doing qualitative, you need to go deeper. The advantage of the quantitative is that the findings should be the test of the hypothesis. So if your hypothesis said like financial compensation is relevant in remote work, and then you show that with the regression model, and then you had significance on that variable, that's enough. You don't have to go that deeper. That's okay. That's in quantitative, it's only okay, I tested this and that's it. But in qualitative, you need to go deeper. So I hope that this about the findings is useful for you, and then I will talk a little bit about other things in the next video.